Welcome to another episode of Vacuum Lab's podcast, Banking on Air. I'm your host, Helene Panzerino, and today we're going to be delving deeply into remittances, the world of cross-border payments, empowering those along the way, and how we can also help those who are maybe not as banked, unbanked, and a little bit of financial inclusion. I'm never alone on the podcast, obviously. I've got some great guests today. COO and the co-founders of SympliFi are with me. So before we get stuck into the meat of the matter, how about a couple of introductions? Maurice, would you like to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ellen, for having us on the show. Maurice Iwunze, I'm the CEO and co-founder of SympliFi.
Yeah, thank you, Alain. So I'm Gregoire Lecomte, COO and co-founder of SympliFi.
Thank you very much, both of you. And I'd like to get a little bit further into your backgrounds once we start with we start unpacking a bit about SympliFi. So I read SympliFi was founded with one goal in mind: to empower the diaspora around the world to build prosperity in their home country. Firstly, I need to ask you why you felt the need to do this. And then secondly, I want to get into how that actually takes place. So let's start with the why. Maurice, what were you doing before this that suddenly made you realize that this was something that you had to stop and do?
Absolutely. So I think there's two driving factors, one personal and one professional. So, as a Nigerian American, my parents migrated to the States, late 60s, your typical immigrant story, not a lot of money growing up, and constantly had to watch my parents, even to this day, struggle with this financial obligation of having to send money back home to support family members and people in the community in Nigeria. And we saw this growing up, seeing this constant struggle around it. I always wanted to figure out, is there a better way that we can help the millions of immigrants like my family, like my parents, support their family members back home without this constant burden and need to send money? Are there other financial products that we could provide this customer base that gets the job done back home without sending money across borders? And so that was the personal motivation to start it. And from a professional standpoint, as I advanced in my financial services career, I had the pleasure to work with Gregoire at a company called Baobab Group that owned and operated one of the largest portfolios of microfinance banks across Africa and China. And in our experience, seeing the power of access to credit and financial inclusion in developing countries and how that unlocks massive financial opportunities for the borrowers, we had this thesis and idea that if we can leverage the resources of immigrants and diaspora abroad to enable their family members to access credit instead of sending money, could that be a more powerful and more impactful solution for both sides of the equation?
Thank you. Greg, I want to come to you to pick up on something that Maurice just said. So enable their family members to access credit as opposed to sending money. Because of course, many of us know from a pure remittance market, which is huge as a global market, that people are supporting their families at home, sending money home all the time, possibly paying, high fees for that, both ends, potentially using a human being involved in an agent situation where we're increased for financial crime or for money laundering and all the other parts of the equation that come with that. So can we dig a bit deeper into that? So you both came together, you saw microfinance. What's the difference to a straight remittances?
So the main difference is that there is no money sent. So what we are saying in our value proposition is that there is about 25 to 30% of the total volume of remittances that represent, 150 billion per annum that is sent for business purposes because the receiver in country cannot access credit. Banks don't lend in that country, and therefore the sender, the people from the diaspora based in Europe, UK, or US, they have to play the role of the bank because their relative don't access credit. And this is what we say at SympliFi. We say, don't send money. If you top up your SympliFi wallet with that money, this money is going to be a digital collateral so that your relative can access credit on his own. And this is what we are doing. We are opening this virtual circle of building financial independence, that you don't always have to call someone abroad because you cannot access credit. And once you put a foot in door to credit, then you can be financially independent and not always rely on the financial of other people.
Okay. And Maurice, can you tell me, so I listened, Greg, you were saying there's a wallet, there's digital collateral, and we're not sending money. So walk me through the steps. If I want to empower one of my relatives and I'm on the other end and I want to get the loan, what are the steps? Who's involved in the chain? And actually, where are we doing it? Which countries are we doing it in?
Yeah, so we started with the UK to Nigeria corridor. And the way that our business works is that we partner with banks in the home country, so Nigeria to start with, and they're the ones that are actually issuing the loan. So they leverage our platform to be able to issue the loan to borrowers locally in Nigeria with the backing of their family members abroad. So how the process will work is that it's fully digital. It's important to say that. The borrower in Nigeria who has a family member abroad that they traditionally would ask for money. They will go onto our website and apply for a loan with one of our lending partners. In submitting this really short application, they provide us the details, just the name, a mobile phone number of the family member in Europe or US that wants to back them on the loan. They submit a request online. Their family member that they've designated as a guarantor will receive the request. They download the SympliFi app, and the SympliFi app has a digital wallet. So what they would do is they top up their SympliFi wallet for the amount of the required collateral for the loan. So it's usually the amount that they would normally send. They top that in their wallet, lock it, and once it's locked, the bank in Nigeria is notified. They instantly disperse the loan to the borrower in Nigeria. So in this process, you potentially can go from the borrower submitting a loan application to their family member, instantly getting a low interest loan in Nigeria, potentially in a matter of minutes or hours. And the money that's locked in their collateral, we pay them a small cashback reward on it as well. So instead of paying costly transfers, they actually make money from helping their family member access credit.
So so the wallet in essence is like an escrow account, but with cashback on it. Presumably, it doesn't move unless somebody defaults or until it's refunded back once the loan is repaid.
Exactly. So the money sits in the wallet and they earn interest on it for the duration of the loan. And while they're earning interest in the form of cash back on the money in their wallet, their family member can use it for continuous access to credit. So it's really powerful about solution is just one collateral can enable your family member to get one, two, three, four, five, six loans. Like anytime they need cash, instead of calling you, they can just go to the bank and leverage that same one collateral.
And
Um,
so, and I'm leaving it there because I'm earning on that money. So I don't, and
exactly.
no, and presumably the amount that I'm leaving in there is we've determined that it's something that I can afford to do in case there is a default, for example, or it can come out of my daily workings.
Exactly. And so in the event of default, what happens is that whatever is owed to the bank makes best efforts to collect on the loan from the borrower. And in the event that they're not able to collect on the loan, that's the only time that we capture the money from the collateral and then we remit it to the bank. But a vast majority of our customers repay their loan. So you basically have people currently in the UK that are able to provide their family members constant access to cash without them ever having to move money.
I'm actually sitting here thinking, firstly, I'm going, okay, so, great ideas are sent down to like 10 people at one time. He who moves fastest usually gets to that market first. But why has it taken so long for someone to think about this? Is pretty, like, it is really life changing stuff. For the person on the other end, presumably they don't necessarily have to have a bank account with that bank. So they're
Correct.
able to create some kind of credit rating, credit history,
Exactly.
building up on the repayment, right? I'm
Exactly.
okay. I'm not having to use anything that's expensive in between time as the person who's sending the money. I can trust because it's sitting in that account where it's earning money and it's all. And again, I go back to you on the regulation side. It's all in a regulated entity,
It's
so
all
that I
regulated entity. And you see it. You see it
wow
in your wallet.
wow.
So and then we always say like it's opportunity for users to keep their money, to hold on to their money.
And I've got to say, I mean, okay, so you guys were working in it before. You mentioned the technology and the platform and that it's all digital. And I want to come back to some of the technology and what that feels like and looks like. But again, I'm sitting here going, how did you come to this? Were you sitting there, those moments where you think, well, the simplest thing in life is usually the thing that has the most impact. Were you both sitting there one day thinking, hang on a second, this has been all upside down and all wrong? Because I know you were working together before, you met each other through work, but this is pretty powerful stuff. So what was that light bulb moment?
The light bulb moment for us was when we were on a business trip visiting one of the banks we owned in Africa. And the banks we own in Africa also serve as Western Union agents. So it's where people go to pick up their remittances. And we're seeing a long line of people waiting in line in our branches to pick up the remittances. And we realized that a vast majority of the people that were waiting in line to pick up money from our banks would not be credit worthy enough to get a loan from our bank. And if you ask the CEOs of all the banks we own in Africa, who's your biggest client? They'll tell you their biggest client does about $50,000 to $100,000 credit facility on a regular basis. And they'll all tell you that client started with a loan of just a couple $100s. And if you look at the average amount of size of remittances that people are picking up from our branches, it's a couple $100s. And so that was the light bulb moment for us, was that instead of sending that money, can't they just leverage it to start building credit history and start getting a loan from one of our banks so they can become one of those $50,000, $100,000 clients of ours, and they will never have to ask their family members for money again. That was the light bulb moment for us.
Amazing, amazing. And is the technology, is it complex? Was it difficult to put it all together? You know, sometimes people say, oh, it's something's AI driven and something's an algorithm. I think both of those technologies are older than me, and that's going far. So, but they've been presented. It's not often that happens, I got to be honest. But they've been presented as something that's, brand new, shiny technology. It's just that it's all been packaged up in a different way. And a lot of the time, let's face it, it's a different distribution channel. It's nothing that's really been, earth shattering. So fill us in a little bit on the technology and how that works.
Yeah, so it's always to who you ask the question to. So if you ask to backend engineer, will tell you that it's not deep technology. However, there is a very high level of complexity into the business logic, because you need to connect a borrower in Nigeria, a regulated microfinance bank or bank in Nigeria, with someone in the UK. And everything has to be as simple as possible. And we have these basically 3 clicks logic that we always have in mind, that you have to be able to do any transaction in less than 3 clicks. We really want make the experience for the users as simple as possible, seamless, so that he doesn't see that behind this there is a lot of logic and complexity. And so this is really what we have been trying to do, and so far quite successfully, is that it looks super simple. This is also why we came up with the company name SympliFi, that we really try to simplify a process that can be seen as complex to something that anyone can do quickly.
Understood. And if I'm on the receiving end, obviously I need to have a phone, presumably. In this instance, it's mostly done on phones, on smartphone-enabled phones, because we have the wallet in the phone.
So if you're on the receiving side, so our mobile app is used only for the sending side, for the guarantor.
Only on the sending side. Okay.
The receiving, the people in Nigeria, he's dealing directly with the bank. It doesn't need to go to any branch. The process is fully digital, so sometimes it can be disbursed on his mobile wallet or on his bank account. For the receiver, he's the one who decides what is the best way for him to get the money.
Okay, and actually, I suppose in some ways, I know that not everywhere in the world, and I know we look at some of the countries that we're in. We spoke about Nigeria, but you're in other countries as well. There are phones, and not always smartphones, but there are now initiatives underway to get phones at a low cost out to people, so that people can be connected to the networks and make it that much easier. I think sometimes we forget that although we have a lot of penetration, we don't always have smartphone penetration as well, depending on where we are in the world. And you said it before, Gregor, when it's something is complicated, but it looks really simple, that's the ultimate, isn't it? Right? That's making something look simple is the sign of something that has depth to it, obviously. But you don't want people on the end to see that necessarily. You just want them to have the 3 clicks through the process. Digital to digital is the whole journey. And the receiver and the sender can experience that in such a short period of time. I love the fact that the bank is involved, but in a meaningful way, and we're not having to go to things like payday lenders anymore, or the ye olde traditional loan shark or anything like that. Because I think, like you, Maurice, my relationship with money was formed when I was a child, and I saw my family struggling, and my background meant that it was always a little bit, well, there were a lot of questionable moments there. And you think, well, how can I help that community not have to do that anymore? But we've been going on in this way for such a long time, and we've spoken about remittances corridors around the world for such a long time, doing it the same way, that I'm literally blown away by the fact that suddenly I've met you guys and realized that there's another way to do it. Well, you mentioned that it's been successful so far. Maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the successes. So what has success been looking like? We'll talk about some of the challenges as well, but how has success been along the journey?
So for us, success is that we started on a web-based platform, to validate the proof of concept last year, 2020 in March. And, it was at the exact same time that, COVID arrived and every country locked down. This is really where we had traction started. And the reason why is that while most of the bank in Nigeria stopped lending because of the lockdown, our financial partners were the only one who continue lending and continue supporting the clients because they were able to access cash collateral from someone abroad, which means the loan was in a sense de-risked. And they were also able to do this process completely digitally. And from this, we have been growing, having users, and also now that we are upgrading through the mobile app, it is going to really allowing us to go faster in the product delivery.
I think people were thinking that people would not be sending as much money abroad during the pandemic, but in fact, that really didn't happen, did it? I mean, it was, there might have been slight dips, but there were still people sending or wanting to send money or get money to other people during the whole of the pandemic.
Yeah, so the remittance, it varies by markets. I think some countries saw a slight dip, but the dips weren't as significant as I think maybe people forecasted. I think
Yeah.
overall they might have been a little bit. I think what was valuable for our customer base during that period was that it almost on this traditional send side or guarantor side, the economic downturn affected them as well. I think it was a realization that when there's an economic shock and I either lost my job or I've been furloughed, right? Where am I going to get the money to support people back home if I don't have a job or my income gets significantly reduced? So, from the feedback we've received from customers, part of what drove the traction at that time was that realization. So, our customers saw the value in being able to help their family members, but at the same time, reduce this dependence that they had gained over the years and enable them to start learning how to access money on their own. And at the same time, being able to save their own cash flow
And I would imagine that by having that pot of money there that you can reuse and
over and
recycle,
over.
the guilt was not there. If you felt like you couldn't keep sending money, right? The solution takes
Exactly.
that away because as
Exactly.
long as it's there, you don't have to keep coming up with it. If you're in a situation like you were in furlough or you lost your job, as long as you can leave it there, then it's still going to do the thing you want it to do, right?
Exactly. Exactly. One of our customers in the UK went from avoiding messages and phone calls from a particular family member in Nigeria because during COVID, they lost their job and I can't send you money. I don't want to tell you I'm not working right now. And so it wasn't until they found our solution that they're like, okay, this makes more sense for my financial needs, right? My financial situation.
Fantastic. I mean, obviously, these are successes on an individual basis, and you've had success as well. And I want to talk about the insurance in a little bit also, but you've been on the Techstars program, haven't you, as well? Was that part of this last year?
Yeah, so we did. So we completed Techstars Berlin during the first and second quarter of the years. Was 13 weeks of intense program, being able to access mentors, being challenged of what we do, accelerate our roadmap. Yeah, it was an extremely valuable experience. We learned a lot, and yeah, really help us to be on the right track to continue the growth and accelerate wherever we want to be.
And I think that second part of it as well, hopefully that is like the springboard into, and I would love to talk to you about where you're going, future jurisdictions, countries, and other products. I want to come back to I mentioned insurance. So you've got other partnerships, haven't you? There's a UN partnership and there's an insurance partnership as well. So maybe, Maurice, you can tell me a little bit about the insurance side.
Absolutely. So we signed a partnership with AXA. So obviously, I'm sure most people are familiar with AXA, leading global insurance and investment management company. And so AXA has been looking for ways to increase insurance penetration in developing countries and understand the dynamic that in these countries, when there's a medical emergency, 99% of people don't have insurance to cover any medical emergency. So their family members abroad end up filling this insurance gap through sending money to cover unexpected medical emergencies. And so we realized that if we can enable the traditional sender to also provide their family members, people in their community, health insurance, that will also reduce that financial burden on them as well. And so we partner with AXA for this first of its kind solution that bundles health insurance coverage with our loan product. So any customer that gets a loan through us will also get automatically medical insurance coverage for the duration of that loan.
It's amazing, and as I'm listening you speak, I'm thinking about, people talk all the time about poverty and health being linked, right?
Hmm.
And people talk about it, and we usually talk about it in terms of vaccination programs and education programs. But for something that's in financial services to actually be moving the needle significantly by doing something practical that links health and financial well-being, again, I'm sitting here thinking it's like a series of firsts, right?
Yeah.
That I'm hearing with you guys. And actually everybody listen, because because this is groundbreaking stuff. Really, just I'm blown away. Now, of course, we can't all speak about the UN. This is like people saying, "Well, I've been to Downing Street today, or I've been to the White House." Well, we've been to the UN as well, right? Tell
Hmm.
me about what's happening with the UN, because that's another thing that doesn't just fall into people's laps.
Yeah, so the United Nations Capital Development Fund, they launched a request for proposal last year, right after COVID, to be able to partner and support innovative initiatives that will better help migrants to use the money they have and basically to identify solutions to sending money. And so we applied to it and we got accepted to the program. So we are, I think, the youngest company there. They have been enrolled in the program. And so part of their partnership, they are helping us in our expansion that will be starting by Senegal. They also help us with regulatory advice, partnerships, best practices, as well as client education. So far, we have been working with them on a regular basis, and yeah, this partnership has been really instrumental in our journey for the past 7, 8 months with them.
So much has happened in a short space of time. And actually, so one of the things you mentioned is regulation. Has that been one of the challenges in the journey, or is it not as complicated as we might think?
So initially it was. So we, being the first to ever do this, we basically have been laying the groundwork to get buy-in from all the key stakeholders in the value chain. And so obviously being a fintech company, regulation was really the first box we had to check. So we went through an 8-month review process with the UK financial regulator. They did extensive evaluation of our business model and determined that for our model, we did not need any regulatory permission. So we received a no objection letter for them to operate our model. On the borrower side, we only work with regulated banking partners that we also do a KYB check on and vet in before we work with them as well. So the loans are being issued in the home country from those regulated entities. So the beauty about our business model is that since we don't have any onerous regulatory constraints or considerations, we can easily enter new markets with partners.
Because you're not the one that's lending the
Yeah,
money, and you're just there holding it in the back. Okay,
yeah.
as well. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, if I'm one of the large remittance companies, am I knocking on your door? Is somebody knocking on your door? They should be knocking on your door, right? They should, you should be, people should be thinking about having a conversation with you as well.
Yeah, so
So go
yeah,
ahead.
I mean, so we built the product and our business model to be complementary to the broader financial ecosystem. So companies that may view us as competitors today, we believe there's a perfect synergies for us to collaborate in the future. And that was intentionally done. We see ourselves as an enabler to drive additional digital financial products in the market. The remittance companies historically only had one product to deliver to customers. And so what we're just doing is unlocking new digital financial products that can be delivered to that customer base.
I'm almost speechless. I keep, as you talk, I can see my mind going around, and I'm trying to processing everything going around. So, oh gosh, and so much has happened in such a short period of time. So if we were sitting here, for example, in another year, where would we be? Where would you be? Where is SympliFi going in another year from now? What can we expect? And either of you, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, so for the next year, we're going to be focusing on growing our business in two home countries, so Nigeria and Senegal. But we're going to get to a point where the Nigerians and Senegalese will be able to access credit using a family or friend anywhere across the globe. So right now we're just in UK and Nigeria, but we're just in UK from the guarantor side, but we will be covering broader geographies over the next 12 months. And on the lending side, we really see ourselves as a conduit to enable new forms of digital lending in host countries where credit penetration is low that drives increased access to credit to improve people's livelihoods. We see a scenario where we're working with a multitude of partners that are doing really innovative solutions around enabling financial services, enabling credit, and us partnering with them to help accelerate that digital lending proposition for borrowers on the home country side. And on the guarantor side, for us, it's about constantly developing products that reduces the need to send money across borders. So for us, credit was the first inroads into that. We're layering insurance on top of that. And we're going to continue to layer in and add new products to our product stack, all around this mission of let's solve the job you're trying to do back home, but without you having to send money across borders to do it.
This is honestly, I'm every time you say it, I keep thinking I know what we're talking about, but I still can't believe that. Firstly, that you guys saw it and you did it, and obviously that we're doing it now. And when you say it, it's so obvious, right? But it's been such a challenging space for so many people for so long. And this is just like the perfect use of all the different parts of financial services and technology to make something amazing happen. True, I never say, very rarely can we say that in financial services and fintech that it is life changing. But I think this is life changing, obviously on the recipient side, but also I think I can understand the mind of the person who's sending the money as well. This is a super great relief off their weight off their shoulders, really, to be able to do this using technology and to be earning money on it as well, so that everyone benefits. I personally can't wait to see where you go as we go forward. And it's been a real privilege and an honor to be able to speak with you. I think all of our listeners and subscribers, I hope they're going to follow the story and get in touch and stay part of it. I just want to say thank you very much, Tom. Thank you for joining us today and for bringing everybody to introduce us to everybody at Vacuum Labs, to introduce the team from SympliFi. It's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you having us on.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you to everyone who's been listening and who joined us. We'll see you on our next podcast.